There are at least 20 episodes of ours. I don't even have to go back and count them. I can say this authoritatively. There are at least 20 episodes of Olight jokes. So
I mean,
Yes.
it's
Yes,
an easy
and
joke to
a
make.
few cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of punching down at this point,
well,
which I find funny because they did win. You're seeing like kind of semi-serious dudes, and LEO starting to use them, which I find actually awful.
I'm fine
But, I
with
mean,
that.
I'm absolutely fine with
You're listening to the Art and War podcast with your hosts, Mitch and Nathan. Mitch is a former airborne infantry squad leader who now spends most of his time coaching soccer. Nathan is a professional illustrator and an avid shooter with a couple of years of Canadian military experience. Together, they run the Seaburn art page. Enjoy the show.
I mean, like, we don't really have a cold open, but before we get into,
I was gonna say, don't say that we don't have an opening, for fuck's sake.
Oh, we don't have it open, so we don't have an opening, and I guess that's our opening. That's a throwback, isn't it?
Fuck you. It's not a throwback. We do it every episode. Whatever. all right.
But yes, there is a large unidentified flying Chinese weather balloon going over America, and it fucking kills me. It kills me. Every meme about that is bringing my day joy, even though like the implications are fucking horrible. But yeah.
Well, we could get into all sorts of that, but first of all, I'm
Yes.
BR. I'm joined by my co-host Nathan, and we
Hello.
have a special guest today, Jack from Guerrilla Tactical.
Yo,
Again.
what's up, guys? Back again.
Hell yeah, part 2. This is the third episode in a row where I'm having major FOMO from fucking SHOT Show because Nathan has once again just hung out with our guest in person.
Yes, it was wonderful. We hung out at the Mira safety booth with Joe from Goonan Gear.
I mean, it was
pretty cool guy.
SHOT Show is a fun time typically.
See, like the main takeaway that I'm getting from people is just like anything else. It's like you can be anywhere, and as long as you're meeting cool people, it's a good time. So I mean, obviously, you guys are looking at fucking like belt feds and shit. So and nods. So it's a little cooler than just watching paint dry together. But
well, I think there's a lesson to be taken from this, which is when you make those decisions in your mind, and you're like, should I go to SHOT Show and hang out with my friends because it's only like a 4 or 5 hour drive away, and my friends have offered to put me up, or do my adult responsibilities and be lame. Maybe you should come hang out with your fucking homies.
Well, that is, I am afflicted with responsibility, unfortunately.
Yeah,
shirk your responsibilities.
I mean,
be a child. Join us.
there was a lot of childish hangs as well, and it was fun to see all our friends and meet new people as well in the industry. But also, it was extremely important for us to be there again because we had this year more meetings than last year, and actually some pretty cool stuff lining up that we're excited to come out this year. So we're looking forward to that. It was definitely a beneficial SHOT Show for those reasons, for business purposes.
Hell yeah! I mean. Like it's been really. We talked a little bit last time about kind of the purpose and reason behind why you started Guerrilla Tactical, what you're about and stuff. But I mean, principally, people might have initially known you as kind of chiefly kydex and medical stuff. But has there been any more developments on what you guys are looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, we have multiple phases that we're trying to work towards this year. One of those things is continuing to offer more models and whatnot for kydex. We just launched a product that I'm super excited about, which is along the lines, the medical stuff that we push. But we're calling it the KISS pouch, the Keep It Simple pouch. And you may have seen that on social media. But that's kind of starting to pick right up. And I think that it's like an excellent product that's not really been done the way we've done it before. So it allows you to conceal carry, everyday carry the essential medical supplies. It's essentially like a mini IFAK that it goes, inside the waistband. With the easy access to it as well. So we're pretty excited about that. And we've gained a lot of traction from SHOT Show. We met with some people and some distributors who are looking into the possibility of wanting to carry it because, like I said, there's not really much out there of this nature, of this, small profile like we're doing with this KISS pouch. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really love the idea behind that because whenever I want to go somewhere, but I'm also like, it'd be really nice to have like a full IFAK. I end up feeling like that dude with the full Molly backpack or whatever, like you have to have like a trunk of supplies on your back looking, very quote unquote gray man.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
I created it because I wanted to carry medical supplies every single day, and I'm not a cargo pants or cargo shorts kind of guy.
Yeah.
Fanny packs aren't really my thing in most cases. Like you said, the backpack is okay if you're in the right environment for it, but I definitely don't have a large backpack with a full IFAC on me at all times wherever I am.
Yeah.
Whenever we do medical training classes, we would always ask people if they have an IFAC, and most would say, yeah, sure do. And I say, where is it? And they often say in their car. And then we'll proceed to grab them by the arm and say, go get your IFAC. And they can't do it, of course. So that's why we created this. I selfishly made it so I could carry medical supplies more easily. And therefore, we wanted to put it out there on the market for other people to do the same.
Hell yeah. No, I'm all about that. I mean, it's something that, so many of us have been kind of shifting to trying to hammer home that you are way more likely to use an IFAC or medical supplies than a handgun. And yet we'll find a way to conceal, whatever our handgun of choice is, and maybe even an extra mag and all of that, all the cool, sexy stuff.
Maybe 2 extra mags.
Yeah, no, seriously. I mean, Christ, we've all seen the memes. Guy who has like 2 drop legs and then like another pistol strapped to his drop leg somehow.
Absolutely.
But no, like medical. Most of those dudes, medical. Why would I carry medical?
Well, why would you carry medical? All you need is a rat's tourniquet
and some tampons
and a couple tampons to staunch the bleeding.
Yeah, I mean,
Personally, I just carry 2 frag grenades because if I get hit, I'm going to make sure that everyone else has to suffer for it.
7-Eleven gets robbed and you just pull the pin.
Just like, give me your wallet. Just immediately pop both pins. So
never got my wallet though.
But no, really, really love to see that kind of being something that's being, made more accessible and more streamlined. Because having no excuse to carry medical supplies is the future.
I mean, I think
what is in the medical kit? Not to turn into an advertisement. That's not the intention. But I'm genuinely curious.
So we've kind of gone through an IFAC, and we've decided that we wanted to keep it low profile, and readily accessible for that essential kit, what we would call it. So inside the KISS pouch is a stretchable nylon sleeve that holds Z-fold combat gauze, twin hyphen chest seals, and a little slot for gloves as well. So if you just add the tourniquet of your choice on your belt or in your pocket, like the new Snake Staff everyday carry tourniquets, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, I was about to say Snake Staff makes a cool looking one. They have no idea who the fuck we are, but they look really interesting.
I don't know if you know much about them, and I don't think it's a secret, so I'm sure I can say it on the podcast. It doesn't matter, but Flux Defense and Snake Staff are essentially the same company.
Oh, cool.
Oh, the guys who make the Flux.
Yeah, they work out of the same building.
Oh,
and there's a lot of crossover there. So they have some pretty smart people down there working on these innovative products like the braces or chassis, whatever you want to call them, and then also this new everyday carry tourniquet that they've come out with. So we've been carrying and testing these tourniquets for a long time, and I'm somebody who I'm not going to promote a product or use a product if I don't know for sure that it's going to work for me, right? So I wouldn't just no one's paying me to say this or whatever, but I think there are a game-changing item that has just hit the market because really. People we talk about carrying medical supplies. People don't carry cat tourniquets because they're too large.
Yeah.
On your kit is one thing, or if you do have a backpack or you do have a fanny pack or whatever, that's different. But most people aren't putting a cat in their pocket because it's just absolutely too large, And so it's a hindrance. And everyone trusts cat because years of experience, with them overseas and being TCCC certified. And people are a little iffy, and rightfully so, about the new Snake Staff tourniquets. But one of the things that I like to remind people about that is we've done our own testing. We actually have some videos and stuff coming out about it. And they have a lot of data out there, and they are trying to, get the TCCC certification for those tourniquets as well. It just takes some time. But what I always tell people is it's like you're not pairing this or comparing this to a cat tourniquet. You're not saying one or the other. You're saying this or nothing. Or this, or tearing up a T-shirt and making a makeshift tourniquet on the spot, which it can work if in a situation like the Boston Bomber, the guy there saved a lot of lives by making makeshift tourniquets. But shouldn't be your go-to when there are options on the market that actually are proven to work.
Yeah, no one wants to be MacGyver under stress.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's like you I think it's a good solution. And, we've been carrying them. We actually are in the process of creating a tourniquet holder that I think is a huge game changer as well, that pairs perfectly with their everyday carry tourniquet. And that's not released yet. We're in the working stages of it. But it's going to be something that should be hitting the market pretty soon. And we're working with them on that. So pretty excited about that.
Very cool. The future of everyday carry medical is bright.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, medical's not sexy, you know what I mean? So we're trying to, bring sexy back a little bit.
I love it.
Yeah.
No, that is something that I think the community is getting a little bit wiser to, is like, so many people are now like, all right, we know this isn't the sexy thing. There's not weapon outfitters out there taking pictures of girls with medical gear and stuff. But
I mean, we can change that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to bug him now. But
yeah, I'll go message them.
Just pose him with a full eye fact. But
all the gun bunnies with tourniquets and stuff. Yeah, maybe that's.
Hey, I mean, maybe that's what we need to do. But
these brainless dudes notice.
Yeah, like that's just like the subliminal messaging for carrying medical, is just put it in front of a.
Seriously.
But no, I think that's kind of the trend that we're starting to see, is like people are starting to realize this is less about just posturing with, cool objects, and more like, yeah, if the lights go off, like, it's on you, dude.
Yeah,
and
there's a preparedness mindset that's definitely, formulating, or with more and more people. It's a mindset I see, growing every year, or whatever you want to call it. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I just texted him to do it.
what?
I just, all I said was gun buddy with medical gear shoot. When?
Calendar shoot.
Yeah,
Changing culture, one fucking photo shoot.
They do sexy nurses, right? Like, what?
I don't know.
I'm saying in general, there's like an aesthetic of like the sexy nurse. Why not the sexy medic?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what's not sexy is dying from gunshot wounds. So
yeah, that shit sucks.
Yes,
that shit not cool.
Or just like something even more mundane and embarrassing, which is like falling off your bike on a nature trail and like impaling your brachial artery on a tree. Shit like that happens all the time.
I don't know if I talked about this on an episode or not, but I was out back. Oh, I think I talked about this on my show really briefly. But I was out back working with a table saw, like cutting down some firewood from some pallets and shit. And I was like, I paused for a second. I was like, should I grab a tourniquet to cut wood? No one else was home, and I was like, it would be really fucking embarrassing to mess, like, and I'm very safe with power tools. I'm a fucking adult. But I was like, what if I fuck up and I cut myself real good and I bleed out in the backyard, like, and I couldn't open the fucking door to get inside and find my tourniquet. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take 5 seconds and grab it and make sure my phone's charged in my pocket, and then I'll get to work.
I'll tell you, I have a story about that happened to my operations manager Josh earlier last year. I was down in town doing some errands, and he called me, and he was distressed on the phone, and I picked up, and he said, I cut my fingers really bad. I need you to take me to the emergency room right now, and hung up the phone. So I, flipped the truck around and, chuck a 180 and zip back up there, and got there, and I like pulled my IFAC out because I didn't know what to expect. I saw he wasn't around, but I knew he was working on, he's doing a van build out. So he was using a table saw, like a portable one. And I think he was cutting some trim, and the trim piece caught, and it sucked his fingers right in, and his fingers went right into the table saw. And fortunately, he didn't lose any of the digits, but picture a thawed out hot dog cut down the center. And then that's what it was. So I saw blood, kind of spatter all over the ground. And I was just like, didn't know where he was. And he came running up, and he was in his house, and he had wrapped it in like a dirty rag, and he was just holding it tight, keeping pressure on it, keeping it elevated. And, where we live rurally is, if you're driving the normal speed limit, it's 40 minutes to the hospital.
Yeah.
I made it there in 25, but
good man.
Yeah, we got in there, and it was fine. And his overall blood loss wasn't too bad. He kept it elevated and kept pressure on it, and got in, and, they saw him right away and cleaned it and, sutured him up. And he didn't lose too much mobility, and he went through a few months of physical therapy, and, ended up actually pretty lucky considering that he ran his hand into a table saw. But it's the same thing. Like you said, fortunately he was able to access his phone. He didn't pre-stage a tourniquet or anything, but like, it's just good to have that kind of common knowledge and know-how to help yourself or let people know when you're working with things like table saws or power tools, because you don't know what to, something could happen like that. So
Yeah.
fortunately you're around.
No. Thank fuck you could reach him and help him out quick. But yeah, it's little things like that. I'm like, all right, do I stare my masculine pride in the face and go like, nah, we're gonna take a few seconds to be like overly cautious, or do I just say fuck it and carry on? And it's stories like that that's like, you know what, I'm gonna be a little pedantic, and so my family, all of my grandparents are missing at least one digit
Yeah.
from like working on the farm, or like like prepping stuff in the kitchen or whatever, or construction work. They all lost a digit somehow, and I'm like, I don't know if this is fucking genetic at this point. Do we just fucking hate? Do we need nubs for some reason?
You're trying to
Do we just
break that chain. You're gonna
sure as fuck, dude? I am doing my very best to break the chain. I'm like, absolutely not. I like having all 10 digits,
sure.
Jesus Christ, but yeah, I'm doing my best. I think it's inevitable because I like power tools, I like guns, I
Sure.
like explosives. Let's redact that last part. But yeah,
Fireworks. I like fireworks.
fireworks, yes.
But
But
Yes.
I will say Josh was 2 days out of the hospital, was back to molding holsters. So
fuck yeah, that's a good employee.
Yes.
God damn. Well, I mean, speaking of medical preparedness, you've been doing a little bit of, well, how long ago did you head out to Ukraine to help with the medics and
So
stuff?
I think the last time I was on the first time here, I was on the podcast here. I had
You were about
just
to
gotten
leave,
back.
right?
I had just gotten back from Poland. I think we were in Ukraine.
Oh, yes,
a little
yes.
bit, doing some work with the refugees and around the border and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So after that, probably I don't know, probably about a month after that, we got some offers through the company to come over there and train combat medics who were preparing a unit that was preparing to go to the front at that time.
Hell yeah.
So we went over, we did a little fundraiser for it. We didn't want to take payment for it. We thought it was the right thing to do. A lot of these kids were 18 and 19 years old in this unit that was previously territorial defense, and then they were conscripted into the military to fight on the front. So they were all based out of Odessa at a base down there. So it's pretty deep Ukraine, and they were really in need. So we felt obligated to go do what we could. So Josh went. I went down, kind of headed things up, logistics and whatnot, and then we also took Dan from Grizzly Medical along with us to help with the training as well. So he's really kind of into those kind of causes and things and helping out. So yeah, we went over there and we spent 2 weeks over in Ukraine that time, and it was this interesting timeline because Russia was really making a push from the east, and they wanted to create that land bridge that would, go into Transnistria and like roll right over Odessa. So Odessa was like that last stronghold of southern Ukraine, right on the ocean there, that was kind of keeping them from doing what they wanted to do. So when we went over, we were, kind of watching, the news pretty closely and talking to our POCs on the ground there and kind of trying to weigh our options, because we had another option to go to Kiev and work with the unit up there. And that would have been like a little bit of the safer bet at the time. So we were kind of, trying to feel it out and see what we should do. But we did feel obligated to go help these young kids who were headed out with not a lot of knowledge. So we kind of made that call. My wife was visiting her family in Spain, and she'd been watching the news with her parents, and she called me kind of hysterical and was like, hey, like, looks like Russia's trying to make this big push. Like, we know that you were going to go to Odessa. Like, you cannot like do what you need to do. Because at this time we were about to cross the border. We were in Poland. Do what you need to do, but you got to promise me you're not going to go to Odessa. We said, okay, yeah, I understand your concern. Like, yep. And so we jumped over, got driven over the border and ended up in Lviv. And then we were going to go from Lviv down to Odessa, and we were trying to decide what to do still. And she went to bed. The next day she called me, and she said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Good." She says, "Where are you?" And I said, "Oh."
At least you're honest.
She said, I could hear a deep breath, and she said, "Okay, like just do what you have to do." Like she understood, and she was supportive, but obviously afraid, but supportive.
Yeah.
And to make matters more interesting, we were supposed to have a driver the whole time when we were in Ukraine helping us out, a military driver, and they had a nationwide fuel shortage. So they had to cancel all those plans, and the only way down was the train. So they were only running the trains at night, and it was about an 11-hour train ride.
Well, and the train lines have been like targeted a fair bit, right?
Exactly. They had really started targeting the infrastructure, and
me.
transportation infrastructure. So we were like, all right, well, we didn't want to get rat-trapped down there because you have the sea to the south, you have unfriendly territory to the west, and you had the front to the east. So we're like, the north is the only way via train, and do you want to do it? And everyone was like, yeah, let's do it. We have an obligation to these kids. And so we said, fuck it, and got on the train and woke up the next morning in Odessa.
Christ.
Yeah.
I know for a fact I would have some gummies on me for that ride. Holy shit.
It was the longest train ride I've ever taken for sure, because they would black everything out as to not be spotted. And then they would stop at these random intersections or whatever along the track that weren't like sanctioned stops. So you'd wonder why we were stopping. And then sometimes they'd stop for 5 minutes and sometimes they'd stop for an hour, and you just don't know why. And
no one telling you what's going on.
No communication. Super silent train. Like it was quite eerie at that time.
Yeah.
We felt it was the right thing to do, so that's why we were willing to take that risk.
How's it going, lads and ladies? BR and Nathan here to take a quick break to tell you about our Patreon. Not only do we want to continue improving the quality of what we can do here on Art and War, but we want to push what we do all over at Seaburn Art, from the guides to pursuing video content and keeping us warm during another winter of illness and death, and the Patreon helps us get after it.
But what's in it for you? Our Patreon subscribers enjoy 5 different tiers of exclusive perks, ranging from all the content we'd post on a pre-Zuckerberg Instagram, downloadable high-resolution guides, targets such as Redcoat Skinwalkers, John Harvey Kellogg, seasonal targets, and more. Behind-the-scenes info like my personal art, introducing all new exclusive mini-podcast episodes, and at our highest tier, get monthly art commissions created by yours truly.
You can find our Patreon via the link in this episode's description, at patreon.com/SeaburnArt, or in the Seaburn Art page's bio on Instagram.
This episode was brought to you by AWS, Advanced Warfighting Solutions.
We use the shit out of their gear here at Art and War.
Everything's made in North Carolina, and they make everything.
Everything.
I'm a big fan of their SMU war belt, the snack pack, their assault pack, their plate carrier, kind of a big fan of everything. And they've been around for a long time with a lot of hard use kit.
Overseas and here at home.
Sorry, I'm just reattaching my phone. Sorry, it'd come loose. This is my fidget spinner, okay?
I know. AWS is our longest running sponsor, and they've helped us do a little bit of everything here at Art and War, from keeping the guides coming out by providing Nathan a new iPad, as well as chucking gear our way so we can get out there on the range.
Tough as hell gear so they can help us go LARP in the woods.
Yep, my assault pack comes out with me every time I'm in the woods. If you want to pick up a one-and-done Molly pistol belt, look no further than the AWS SMU belt. Use code ARTandWar10 for $10 off. We get no kickbacks, you just save money. Link to their site down in the description and in the Seaburn Art page's bio. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the show. So these kids that were being, you said a bunch of 18, 19-year-old Ukrainian territorial defense that had been conscripted, like, what was the reasoning, do you know, for them being selected to be trained up as medics? Was it just a need, or was it like on an individual level, like they had an interest in being specialized, or do you know any?
Yeah, I don't know the background of everybody. So at the end of the day, we ended up training 100 soldiers and 15 combat medics during our time in Odessa, and all within the same unit, multiple kind of offshoots of this same unit. And some of these kids had worked or had been going to school to become EMTs and things of that nature. So I think they were the obvious choice, but they were still like really green and had really no real experience. And, you know, they knew the basics, but they needed to be molded for sure.
God, yeah. How long were you down there again? You said
2 weeks that time. Yep.
Yeah.
And that includes a couple of days on either side in Poland. So the better part of 2 weeks in Ukraine for that trip.
I've noticed Ukraine, and you'd have more insight on this than me. They're taking a lot of civilian contractors as trainers,
Hmm.
especially from the States.
Yep.
Um,
That's
I really couldn't tell you much about it past then. It's worked for better and for worse for them.
Sure. Yep. I think it's one of those things, and I feel like all conflicts end up like this. Is you have people who are there for the right reasons, and you have people there who are trying to get their 15 minutes of fame.
Yes,
So you
absolutely.
have a lot of these people that are like the worst trainers in the US that you would laugh at watching their Instagram page. But because it was such a dire situation, if you could kind of prove any sort of credential, these units would often take people. And Ukraine is interesting in the sense that everything is not sanctioned by the government, where you might have a unit in Odessa per se that they reached out to us through the company, knowing what we do and can offer, and said, "Hey, we would love to have you guys come train our unit." It doesn't have to go through anybody higher up or whatever. They're
mm,
able to at that base say, "Can you come here to help us?" Like just us. So what we found, and I have a handful of friends over there in both training and fighting capacities right now. A lot of them being YPG vets from the conflict in Syria. They started off as training, ended up fighting, whatever, various avenues to get to what they're doing over there right now. But they've been telling, the feedback I'm getting from them is that like it's very much on your own to get the things that you need. So whether that be supplies, weapons, that's why you see so many different donations and things for this, like people doing fundraisers for uniforms, for medical supplies, for whatever they need, body armor, because there's only X amount to go around, and there's so many people over there involved in the fight that there's not enough resources for everybody. So it's a unique conflict in that sense because all these people are kind of on their own trying to do their own fundraising for their own individual units. So it's a mess.
yeah. I mean, on the one hand, like it's a good thing that they're not quite so heavily restricted on being able to reach out and like organize those things, and there's
Right,
not like any kind
absolutely.
of like hard and fast rules about that. But good lord, I imagine if it's like, hey, you're in charge of this unit, it's got to be just a fucking nightmare to be like, all right, well, how do I get these guys prepared for war? And they're like, I don't know, dude,
Yeah,
figure it out.
it's a mess. Yeah, it's and like Nathan was saying, I don't think I quite answered that question properly, but like I think that there are so many people going over there that are just like, oh, I'm a trainer. See, here's my certificate and whatever.
Yeah.
And because there's such a need, they're like, yes, please come help us. And these dudes are over there trying to show Ukrainian units how to do CQB, and they can barely clear a house themselves. And these dudes
Yeah.
are getting killed, and it's a
Yikes.
terrible thing.
Yeah, there was a bit of a scandal about that a
Yeah,
couple of weeks ago. I
yeah.
think.
The
Yeah,
Mozart group.
you're. I don't. Should we? I don't want to dox the guy. I mean, he seems like a dipshit.
I don't know the name, but yeah.
Fuck it. I mean, someone's literally dead because of poor training. Monarch Defense.
Okay.
Um. And it's exactly what you said. Kind of like the Instagram training. Like I've seen some of the videos, like running by a bunch of targets, firing wildly into them with one hand.
Yes, it's that
Almost like a
guy.
parody.
It's that
Sorry.
guy. I have seen those
Yeah,
videos.
it's that guy.
I have seen those videos,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it's
Yeah.
wild. And now one of the people who took his training is dead, and this person could have died regardless. But at the same time, it is definitely not a help that he received training from what I can only describe as someone who is either horribly misguided or a fucking idiot or both.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate because I mean this stuff is literally life or death.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people on the front right now, and I'm talking to them every few days, and they're saying that it's something straight out of a video game reminiscent of World War I France trench warfare, where it's up close and personal, and there's so much artillery shelling happening, that they still they may have the high ground or whatever, but Russia is just sending waves and waves of like a horde to the meat grinder, and then they get mowed down, and then an hour later another wave comes, and it just
Fuck,
goes and
yeah.
goes and goes. And I mean, I think last week the numbers were somewhere around 40,000 Russian troops lost just in Bakhmut alone
Holy shit.
Wait. In the last week
in the
or
last couple of weeks. Yeah.
holy fucking shit.
They just throw. I mean, historically, that's what Russia's move is, right? They're not the
Yeah.
best. They're not the most trained. They don't have the best equipment, but they have bodies just to throw at the meat grinder.
Yep. pick up the rifle of your comrade in front of you.
I mean, 50% of conflicts that they've been involved in, that's how they've won or lost. So it's like, it's crazy. Yeah, it's
in the modern day that we're still seeing warfare like that is insane. And then at the same time, we have like suicide drones seeking people out and
right.
Yeah.
able to watch someone that died, like less than 24 hours ago in 4K
Yeah.
on whatever.
Like across the world, sitting on your toilet watching
Yeah.
death.
I mean,
it's awful.
I remember when the first couple of days of the invasion took place, going on a year ago now, it was the same thing. I don't have TikTok, but my wife was like, look at this, and shows me her phone. And there's literally soldiers like live streaming this stuff on TikTok, more or less. And I'm just like, this is insane that we're watching this invasion take place on the internet like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what the fuck this is going to look like in the history books.
Yeah.
It's actually wild how quickly it's devolved into. And I said this again, I had a whole conversation with Felix of Redbeard, how quickly it turned into just like mud, blood, and guts.
Yeah.
With the addition of, drones and
absolutely
other horrifying.
Oh, it's hellish over there. Like, I mean, we would go to sleep every night. We weren't at the immediate front line. We were probably, 15 hours travel, like a unit travel away. But we would, every single night we would go to bed with rockets flying over our house that we were in, like that. I mean, that was an everyday occurrence. And the closest strike was just under a mile from us, which, shook all the glass out and all the car alarms go off and everything. And actually one of the soldiers who we trained was a first responder to an apartment building that got hit, and he pulled like a month and a half old baby out of the rubble or something like that, who was dead.
Oh, fucking hell. It's awful.
Yeah. So it's hectic.
It's war as hell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, go ahead, Nick. And you.
No, it was nothing important.
But yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that, like, that's one of the things, and I think we touched on it a little bit last time when I was on the podcast, but there's such a fetishization of violence in the culture in the US and probably across the world, but
universal. People, it's something that we've talked about a little bit is, young men kind of have often this ignorance meets need to like prove themselves in that kind of way. And, I'm sure a lot of our audience has been caught up in it, or maybe it still has some kind of ideal about, fighting for glory and all that kind of thing. And it's like, dude, I was just reading about some kid who had a very, all quiet on the Western Front kind of experience where he was very, very excited to go and sign up and in Ukraine. And I think he was a Ukrainian. And, got there, was fighting, instantly realized it was trenches and shelling.
Yes.
And had to carry the lifeless body of his best bud back, and it's just been broken since. And it's like, that's just how these things go.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely horrible. I don't know if you saw that. Did you watch Hunting ISIS when it was out on it was a HBO series, I think, that came out a few years ago?
I didn't.
It's pretty interesting. It goes all into the Peshmerga and the YPG and all the volunteers over there who are fighting against ISIS. But there was a ex-U.S. Marine, Peter Reed. I don't know if you've seen it going around Instagram today, but he just died in Ukraine. But he wasn't there in a fighting capacity. He had started an organization in I think working in Syria. That was a group of like ex-medics who were there driving ambulances for people, and he was caught up in it over there evacuating civilians, and his ambulance that he was driving got hit by shelling today or yesterday.
Fuck.
Like the dude's the same age as me, and it's like when you're over there, you're heavily immersed in everything, and your mind is switched on to like, I'm in game mode. I'm at the task is at hand. Nothing else really matters. Just getting through every day. And you can see how you get to learn these people's stories and, these young kids we were talking to and, hear their side of things. And you can see how people get kind of wrapped into wanting to stay and do more, whatever that may be. So I understand it. Like all these people wanting to go over there and volunteer. And at the same time, it's like, it's not really my fight. You know what I mean?
That is a really interesting phenomenon that's kind of, it's not like the newest thing. I mean, you had Americans volunteering in World War One before America entered the war
Absolutely, yeah.
as pilots and stuff, and that happened in the Revolutionary
And
War
a
in the
Civil
States.
War too. Lots.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tale as old as time. Like it might not necessarily be your fight, but you might have some kind of reason
Absolutely.
to get out there and feel a certain way about it. But it's so interesting now that we have such a modern way to catalog it. Like so many of us have been following people who did,
Right.
volunteer to fight with the Kurds against ISIS, back in the day, and now, oddly enough, a lot of them have gone on to fight in Ukraine. And
Yeah.
I don't know, seeing as you have a few friends who have potentially done that, do you
Yes.
have any kind of insight into the mindset behind that? Because to me, I get the general I think the only way conflict should be fought is by people who volunteer to be there,
Sure, I agree.
who
Yeah, of
Yes,
course. Yeah.
who
I
feel
agree.
a certain way about it.
Yeah.
But it is like a really interesting phenomenon for people to be fighting, with the Kurds and then to go to Ukraine. I'm wondering, is there any kind of like commonality between the issues, or like I don't know. I'm personally at a little bit of a loss as to
My
why
pers-
someone would go from one to the next.
my personal opinion is things kind of wrapped up in Syria for a lot of people, who many of them spent years fighting
Yeah,
the Kurds, and so that warrior culture of feeling like you're doing something for the betterment of tomorrow is ingrained in your brain, I think, and you're really embodying that. So I think that a lot of these guys came back and they felt like that was kind of they did that through their formative years, and they don't really know what else to do.
yeah.
So I think that's why a lot of them went to Ukraine in a training capacity because they saw the Russian aggression to be wrong.
Yeah, just like how ISIS's kind of surge was a similar.
Right, and similar. There's similarities, but obviously, different reasons, different, motives, whatnot.
Yeah,
But I think they see that, and they see all the death and destruction against civilians, innocent civilians for the most part, and they say, "Well, I'm not doing much right now. I can go over there and make a difference because I have a lot of experience with this type of warfare, and a lot of people don't have those experiences." So I
yeah,
think I think a lot of them go over in a training capacity, and they're offering extremely good training on close quarter combat in urban areas, because that's exactly what they did on all the battles all throughout Syria, right?
yeah,
So I think they're able to offer a lot of insight in that regard. And then once they get there, they've spending months on the ground there. They're learning about the people. They're working with these individuals. They're getting to know their backstories and about their family and see what they've lost firsthand. And then they go, "Oh, I think this is a worthy cause that I would, possibly give my life for to fight alongside these people. So that's what I'm going to do." So
yeah.
that's kind of the way I see it. And that's why I think a lot of these people end up in this capacity like that.
Yeah, like no, really appreciate the insight. Not asking you to speak for them, but
No, I mean, that's just what I gather.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's because it is a strange thing nowadays where we know so much about conflicts and causes all across the world. Like, I mean, many of us see, the People's Defense Forces in Myanmar and what's going
Of
on
course, yeah.
there,
Oh,
and
it's
you,
messy.
yeah, and
Super
then
messy.
you get like you get all sorts of vets who are like, man, I wish I could go over there and fight with you guys. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are foreign volunteers over there too, and it's like
Sure.
it's I don't know. It's just an interesting development in the world where, and there's all sorts of opinions on this. This kind of there is right and there is wrong. There is aggression and there's peace.
Right.
And certain people like they just have that kind of drive to. They're like, this is so fucking awful. I can't sit here in
Right.
my and live a cushy life while this is going on in the world. But at the same time, I do worry. It's such a messy topic with because you do worry that people might find themselves like locked into that kind of lifestyle where they only
Oh, for sure.
that's like you said, their formative years and stuff. You have guys who like they felt so strongly about this and maybe they go and do that for like 5+ years and then it's like, well, what else is there?
Yep.
And and we've got a great history of seeing that in veterans
Of course.
from the military. But if you're just like a regular dude or maybe a veteran going out and doing this, then like that's you're really giving yourself over to that lifestyle at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these vets, like, they spend, what is considered a career in the military, and they get out. And I mean, that's why so many of them, I think, go right into private contracting or whatever, because, yeah, sure, the money's good, but they don't know anything else. And I
Yeah,
think that it's hard for them to, integrate back into, quote unquote, civilian life. And I think that you see some of these vets, because I know some U.S. military vets who are over fighting in Ukraine right now, because they have a skill set that was built up through their years in the U.S. military, and they've done multiple combat deployments or whatever, and now they're out and just doing their thing, and then they see something that is actually, with the way they look at it, unjust or wrong. And then, like you said, they think, oh, well, I have the capabilities to do this. It's not just like someone who has no combat experience going over and probably getting in the way, or dying. And
yeah,
it's like, of course, the risk is high no matter who you are. But if you have years of experience, you maybe can be a little bit more helpful or useful to your unit. So I think that you will also see a lot of people in the U.S. military who got out and then maybe question some of their time in the U.S. military and what they did or what they were involved with. And now they see something that they consider actually like a pretty, definite righteous cause in their mind. So they can say, oh, well, maybe I can go over there and do some good. So I think
yeah,
you see that too.
yeah. And there is like something we were touching on a little bit earlier was kind of the kind of the people over there who perhaps shouldn't be. And this
Right.
was this is beyond like just Instagram operator stuff, but something that was really high profile in the headlines a little bit ago was to counter the Wagner group. There was a U.S. group called the Mozart Group.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. You never heard about this?
I've never
I
heard of
think I
this.
vaguely heard about it, but dive into it a little.
Yeah, it was like a weird to me. It seemed very kind of propagandary. It's like, oh yeah, well, here's the American version, like, and these are the good guys. But it came out. They recently just disbanded.
Okay.
Like, I guess they were over there for like a few months before it all fell to shit. And it kind of goes into how just how messy this
Sure.
conflict is, because this was I think some Wyoming based like
Like fake PMC kind of.
well, not I mean real PMC on paper, but they went over there, and I'm sure there are very on it like good dudes amongst that group, but apparently it fell apart due to like a lot of alcoholism and a lot of like kind of a fucky relationship with the local government and all sorts of like just bad behavior in a conflict zone,
Dude,
and
yeah,
it's like
it's messy for sure. And like, if I know one thing is correct, like, Russia's really good at propaganda, and so is Ukraine.
Yeah.
yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's like, and that's something that's really lost in the messaging about this, or like I think a lot of the stuff that you see on social media, like at first it was like, oh fuck Russia, like this is an awful conflict, and as time's gone on, and as our own government has been really fucky about their involvement, and obviously like we don't have to tiptoe around this is a proxy war for the United States.
Yeah.
Like they're quite happy to fight Russia and promote U.S. interests through someone else throwing their people into the grinder.
I mean,
You know?
that's kind of how the military-industrial complex works. You know what I mean? I see. It's one thing that I think is funny, and we don't have to get into it a bunch, but just as like someone who has common sense and has lived a few years on this planet, I see stuff on social media, and I see all these people freaking out about the amount of money or money in equipment that the United States government has sent to Ukraine, and they're freaking out like, oh, it's coming right out of your own pocket or like our pockets. And it's like, it's not really how it works. Like, this is how they recycle equipment and get new equipment. And if it was actually coming right out of your pocket, and we've lost our healthcare or whatever for this reason, then that's messed up. But it's like, they're going to do this no matter what. Like, it doesn't directly correlate the way that all these people on like Instagram complaining about it or make it out to
Well,
be. It's like,
It's the weirdest thing as well because for like 20 years, all of the people who've been complaining about this were completely dead silent about glassing the Middle East
Right.
to inevitably lose a war.
Sure.
But now that it's for quote unquote woke country and all of that, and it's the Biden presidency doing it, the opinions that are coming out, it's like, man, it would have been really great if you guys were pissed off about war like a few years ago. That would have been
Yeah.
nice. But
That's just inconsistencies. There's a lot of it in this world.
sure as hell. Well, the dark grimness of war, always fun to talk about.
Yeah,
But
it's bad. It's
I
messy.
we want to get back into the grim darkness of the United States.
Why not? Well, I mean, that's the thing too. Is like I feel that we have enough to worry about fighting for in this country too. So it's like, man, I don't know. It's that meme. Yeah, I think the meme always gets referenced. It's like, you think this is bad, it's going to get a whole lot worse, and like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to stay positive, but I do believe it's going to get a whole lot worse. How that looks, I don't really know. I don't have the answer for it, but I do know that
Aliens.
times ahead or not. I mean, if aliens landed tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised. After everything
Yeah.
we've dealt with since 2020 or whatever, like all this craziness, like, yeah, dude, like aliens landing in New York and shooting up the place or whatever, like stuff totally.
I love that meme too, like the aliens landing. Like, aren't you surprised? Nah, man, I've had a lot of stuff
I got a
going
lot
on.
on
Yeah, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
they whatever.
It's like, we're waiting for you guys to show up, actually. But I mean,
Yeah. At this point, I'm more concerned about like $15 carton of eggs. I'll take aliens, and I won't even care.
like, oh, cool. Washington is having a hell of a crisis right now.
Man,
Oh yeah, fun. It seems like a lot of places are pushing this kind of legislation at about the same time.
Yeah, I feel like every episode recently we've been talking about some kind of gun control bullshit because
Yeah.
I don't know why, but well, I do know why. It's the inevitable boiling of the frog, of course. But
Yeah.
it's
As
just
people get, more uncomfortable and poorer, you may as well disarm the peasantry.
yeah,
The peasantry gets angry and decides to hold someone accountable.
yeah,
quite right.
I mean, Washington, they've been trying various degrees of this for a while now.
I'm surprised they're going so far with it.
I mean, the governor right now is kind of known for just signing things into law and pushing it through, even if a lot of the state it doesn't agree with it. So they kind of have like this little island of Olympia up there where all the laws are made, and they just kind of they're trying to do whatever they want, which is kind of a shame, especially for all of us living rurally. Like they did that last year or beginning of last year, they just pushed through this energy tax that nobody wanted in the state, and it raised electric prices and up by like 300% or something like that. Like, don't quote me on that exact number, but I know that like our neighbor who has a much larger house than we do, but their heating bill went up from like $100 to like $450 or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's insane. So that was something that was extremely unpopular, and they just said, we're doing it anyways, and pushed it through. And they're very much trying to do that. They kind of did that with the magazine ban, because right now we technically have a magazine ban of anything over 10 rounds. You can own it, you're grandfathered in, you can carry it. It's not just like a range and hunting thing. It's like anytime, if you owned it already, it doesn't matter, it's yours. Because I think they tried to outright ban magazines to high capacity magazines. I'm doing air quotes right now. Standard capacity magazines, let's say. They tried to ban them before, like outright ban them, and it just was like a huge flop. Like people were like, we're not going for that, got blocked. So I think that kind of every year they chip away at it, and right now that's what they did last year with the current mag ban that we have in place. Is they were like, well, we understand we can't outright ban these, so let's just get this one through, and they kind of push this through where it's like no new sale of magazines. So they kind of get you that way. And it also affects people who want to come into Washington to do training or whatever. You're technically not supposed to bring your 30-round magazines over the state lines if you're not a resident of Washington. That being said, nobody is enforcing it. No law enforcement is enforcing it. No sheriff's department has condoned it. It's really not a concern lots of us have lots and lots of magazines, and I don't need to buy anymore. And, that's the biggest problem is you can't just go to a gun store and buy one off the shelf. That's really the biggest issue with it. That being said, it's still wrong. And
you have to drive across the border for an hour to go to Idaho.
Yeah, it's like when we were growing up in New York, you would just, jump over the border into Pennsylvania and buy fireworks. But it's like, so that's that. And now with there was just a shooting in Washington a couple weeks ago, and they obviously hinge on these shootings whenever a shooting happens, and it's a terrible tragedy, sure. But then they really play up those tragedies for their benefit, right? So right now they're working pretty hard at trying to push through this multitude of restrictions, and one is a quote unquote assault weapons ban, and that's going to ban the purchase, manufacturing, or sale of any assault weapon. Again, doing air quotes.
But by the classic kind of definition.
Well, we all know what that means.
Yeah.
So they're trying to push that through, and I believe last week it passed out of the House on a vote 6-4. So we're just kind of waiting around here to see what happens with it. And unfortunately, I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but I'm kind of thinking that it's probably going to go through this year. And it's just kind of the trend that is happening in Washington. They're just kind of pushing these bills through. And another thing they're trying to push for is permit to purchase, and a few other things as well that are, I don't have the list in front of me, but it's 5 or 10 items on this list that are pretty restrictive, and just downright wrong.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things too, when we moved to the Pacific Northwest, this was kind of, flaunted us as like the Pacific Northwest it's kind of written into the laws of Oregon and Washington that no gun laws can change. And it's a great place. And it's like a sanctuary for firearm ownership. So we're like, oh, sick. It's beautiful. One of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And we can just own whatever we want, But now that we've been here 4 years and it's already been going through, 2 rounds of questionable, unconstitutional, unlawful kind of move on guns. So it's kind of sucks in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm really wondering what the overall strategy is, because they know. Surely they must know how strong culturally these things are. So it's like you're going to be putting people in prison, or if you force these edicts through, you are going to create a culture of non-compliance. That's inevitable and historically proven. This is a country that has gone through prohibition, gone through the drug war, and still going through the drug war. We've seen what these things do, and we've seen how Americans react. So, what's the plan? You're gonna kick in doors. You're gonna brutalize people, imprison them, ruin families, and for what? To protect the ivory tower, clearly, because there's nothing to back up that these things are effective in reducing violent crime.
No, we've seen it time and time again throughout the short history since there's of the United States. It's like anytime there's a push or for a gun grab or anything, it doesn't help the problem of violent actions taking place.
You're increasing the amount of gun violence that's going to happen.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. So, I don't know. It's an interesting one too, because there's gotta be, we're in a boiling pot, and it's like, is something gonna make things, boil over? If we keep going down a road like this, maybe. Right now, it's like a lot of people in Washington are worried about it, but they feel kind of hopeless in a sense. They don't really know how they can fight it, because people are like, oh, well, write your representative or whatever. And it's like, well, what is that actually doing? People are like, thank you for your response. That's it. You never hear anything else about it. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, maybe I should just move to Idaho or move to Montana. And then so people are moving away, which is, I don't know that that's the right answer or not, because we've definitely had that thought. If it gets so restrictive here that it affects our business, which right now it doesn't at all, because we don't manufacture weapons or even sell firearms. We only sell, accessories and whatnot. But it's like, if it got to the point where it's so restrictive here that we couldn't operate our business normally, it's like, well, then the next logical step would be to move the business elsewhere. But at what point do you just keep moving until there's just a few spaces left in the whole country where you can like own our AR-15 or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a weird time for sure right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that kind of great migration seems to be a growing trend in the U.S. as well. It's like, okay, well,
It is.
where's the safe haven? I mean, you're talking to a Brit and a Canadian who are like trying to
Yeah.
figure those things out.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's
Which, like, mild white pill, all that the Canadian assault weapons ban thing, like how they went super far.
Yep.
Yep.
That just got struck down today.
Really?
Oh,
What
yeah.
did
They
they?
are
What was the
withdrawing.
reason?
Political pressure.
Was it the native
They
hunting
will be
rights?
back. Like it is.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Was it the native hunting rights that did it in?
Probably a mixture. There's a lot of rural voters
Good.
that like
Yep.
that vote for the NDP and other parties, but they didn't have enough support to get it through, so it's been dropped.
That's shocking.
Very. Like I did not see it coming, and it
hell
will be
no.
back.
Yeah.
Like 100%, it will be back as soon as it has the political clout to pass.
Absolutely. I mean,
But
fluctuates.
yeah, they pushed too hard, too fast.
Yep.
It was like there were rolling block single shot rifles in there.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's why they have kind of started to navigate things the way that they have over the last couple of years, because they have found that these all-out bans just aren't working for them. Like, trying to
Yeah.
just all-out eliminate 30-round magazines or whatever is not happening. So they're like, oh, well, we'll just make it so you can't buy any new ones. You know what I mean? It's kind of like they have like this long game where they just chip away at things until and that's the whole thing though, is like, and as we know throughout various history as well, is like the government chips away at things, and then before you know it, they have the whole monopoly on violence, and you have nothing. And then you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I don't even have the right to do much of anything at all. You know what I mean? And
Oh, I live in Britain.
yeah,
Yeah.
you might know a little something about that.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a really bizarre time, and we're just kind of riding out the storm to see what happens. Fortunately, from a selfish point of view, it does not really affect our business model at this time. We're able to operate the same and continue our growth. We do really love this area, and the Pacific Northwest is amongst some. I've been all over the world. I'm on my second passport; it's almost full, but this is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in this part of the world. So it's like I would love to stay in this area, and I don't want to be the kind of person that's like up and runs at the first sign of like, oh, they're gonna take an AR-15 or whatever. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's definitely not headed in the coolest of directions.
No, not at all.
Sure as hell not. No, it's it is like I was saying. I was talking about this with Prince European in the last episode, but it is like kind of a time where we really have to be very conscious of what we're doing as a culture. Like,
Yeah,
because I mean, as you said, like we can call representatives as much as we want, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, thank you for your call. Go fuck yourself. Have a nice day." Click.
right.
And like, okay, well, now it's on me. Just like medical and just like everything else, it's like, oh well, time to make a decision, and
Yeah.
leaves you to like, like, do you follow the law to the letter, or do you live your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm no lawyer and no expert, and we're on a podcast, but I think that just like most things, you got to live within what you think is the right way to live, and do what you feel is the right way, to live your life. But yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit too on the last time I was on the episode. But like, I mean, I grew up in the hardcore music scene, punk and hardcore, coming from years of doing that. And like, of course, through the punk and hardcore music scene, I was exposed to a variety of ideologies. You know what I mean? All sorts of ideologies. And I think that's one of the things. And we live close to Portland, Oregon as well. And, and we have a lot of friends and, all sides of things. And our immediate neighbors think a certain way, and they're still great people, and, whatever. And like there's a sense of community there. And I think that's really cool. And it supersedes any of the media driven wedge that is in this country, that we see in this country. And that's one of the things we put out a video recently about the kind of the state of what was happening in Washington. And one of the points we made in that video was that it's not a left versus right issue.
Yeah.
It's a human issue, and it's essentially a human rights issue if you're live in this country. And I think that's one of the giant misconceptions amongst people on the right. And I know conservative family members and as well who have kind of stated this to me, and I've said, hey, like not so what most people dislike is the center liberalism. I think everybody just about hates liberals. And
Yeah, 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 and that's something people will confuse. Like
yeah,
you'll see leftists being like "fuck liberals," and then you get some MAGA guy like "hell yeah, brother," and not realizing they have like a red and black profile picture.
and there's a million different beliefs in this country, and that's one reason that this country is the way that it is, and it's so interesting because you can more or less speak your mind and believe what you want to believe in this day and age still, which is great. But there's like this whole left versus right debate. But when it comes to this fact of stricter gun control and one's right to self-defense and the tools to do so to protect yourself, your community, your family, we know lots of people on all sides that are extremely huge advocates for firearm ownership and safe gun ownership and training and whatnot. And of course, there's some serious differences with beliefs across the board. But it's like when it comes to the gun issue, I think that especially people on the right are fighting the wrong fight when they should be looking at the government that wants a monopoly on violence is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and well, I mean, at the stage we're at, and for all of the stresses of the last few years, like we have been, I probably say this once every few episodes, but we have been very successfully divided and conquered.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like,
Yes, 100%.
We see it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, you have people being disarmed, going like, "Oh, like it's the left coming after us," and it'll be like a Republican signing the law into effect. You're like, dude, like this is just an inevitable factor of living under a government. Like they don't want scary tax cattle; they want harmless tax cattle.
Of course. Yeah. And
It doesn't matter what you believe in.
you want people to be docile and obey is what it comes down to. And it doesn't really matter what your ideology is, as long as you abide by that, and then there's going to be no problems.
Yeah.
But I mean, we see it all the time with the company. We deal with all sorts of people all the time. And that common theme that we continue to see is that it's like there are people all over the map. And I don't mean the map of the United States, but literally the map of the United States, but all over that umbrella of ideology who are strong advocates of gun ownership. And I think that that's important to acknowledge, because if you drive a wedge between those people, then you're actually going against the greater goal or the greater picture of, keeping our gun rights in this country.
Yeah, and I mean, the major purpose of gun rights, I think most gun people can agree that it's in some way of phrasing, it is to genocide-proof society.
Sure.
It's to prevent like the very worst things happening to us from, whether it be a threat, foreign or domestic. That's our Second Amendment framing, and wider than that, it's kind of a good idea for general, your natural right to bear arms. It's like, well, if someone's coming into your home, whether they're from the same place as you or from elsewhere, like you have a right to defend yourself.
Right. I mean,
And
I really sorry.
Go ahead.
I keep on thinking that there's a natural that's the end of the thing that BR is saying, and then butting in, and then very rudely interrupting him. It's the same problem I've always had, so I don't know. I'm just drawing attention to it now, 2 years later. But I really hate this whole narrative that it's like, oh well, if you support gun rights for everyone, you're arming the enemy. You're arming.
yes, there's been a lot of that.
Yeah, it's like if you're truly worried about the other people, in this case, what you would see is like blue hair liberals from the city coming to take your guns. So like one, if you're worried about them having guns, if anything you're saying is true, they're sending the police anyway. And two, simply learn how to shoot better than them, because that's how I see it. It's like, cool, the other guys are going to have something, I'm going to have something better, and I'm going to fucking use it. Fuck you.
I'm not sure what to do with that, but
Yes.
no, it's such a weird thing. It's like you're arming the enemy. Like, guess what, dude? The greatest enemy you ever have already has everything they could possibly want or
Exactly.
need.
Right.
Like
Well,
you're
they have F-14s and nukes or whatever he said.
yeah, like you really want to be sitting here like debating amongst who has the right thing to have a gun. Like, okay, way to go, liberal.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's a really liberal point of view as well. Like, and that's I mean that's what's happening here in the Pacific Northwest is we have all these like during COVID and with the lockdowns, a lot of these companies started to have their employees work from home. And kind of the trend we're seeing is that so many of these people have decided to leave expensive California and head somewhere that's close, but maybe a little cheaper, maybe a little bit nicer in certain ways. And right above California is Oregon and Washington. And it's, I think, trickling into Montana. And for whatever reason, a lot have gone to Texas too. But you
That's
see
very weird to me. I
it's
don't understand it.
Texas is very inexpensive, but otherwise, I don't really understand why you would go there for that purpose. I like Texas,
Yeah.
but um,
Yeah, careful. You're gonna get the Texas crowd after you, and they are very proud
Texas,
people.
I used to live. I used to live there. So yeah, I don't understand it. I do understand them coming up, north to the Pacific Northwest, and that's what's happening. There's been so many relocations I feel in the last couple of years that now they're really becoming a voting force. And of course, they're moving, so it's growing the populations of the cities up here, and which are predominantly full of liberals, and those people are the ones that cannot understand why does anyone need a gun? I don't get it at all. Like, no one needs it. The violence is bad. And then they're also the first people to like call the police when someone's on their lawn at night. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like, man, handle your own business. You know what I mean? Like, just maybe you'd sleep a little safer or feel a little safer if you had like a pistol on your bedside stand or something, and you were trained with it. Like, try it out
Well,
sometime.
the worst part is a lot of these people probably did go out and buy a gun during the pandemic because they felt
Yeah.
unsafe.
Maybe.
And,
It's real like ivory tower kind of mindset, I find.
we saw that with a lot of this stuff going on in Oregon. Like there was plenty of people like coming out on Twitter saying like, "Well, I bought a gun, for self defense, but we don't need AR-15s." It's like,
Right.
oh, for fuck's
Yeah,
sake! Like,
you don't really get it, but yeah, it's like,
it's like
good try.
such a messy
Nobody
ideology.
Good try. But yeah, I mean, geez, like, yeah, I think pretty much everybody can point fingers at the problems of liberalism. Um, but we're definitely seeing it up here, and it's really too bad. And like, Seattle, Olympia, Tacoma, they're full of them, and they're just like have irrational ideas about what everyone else needs to do or whatever, and that's not right either. I mean, we kind of touched on it too the last time. Like, to go off of that, like, if you're trying to cultivate this freedom mindset where you want to live your life how you see fit, then you can't try to control what other people are doing as long as they're not hurting others in the process
Yeah.
of doing it. Like, I'm sorry, but like, and I'm probably ruffle some feathers by saying that such a strong statement like that, or even what I said before about the divide in the country, and that it's not necessarily a left versus right issue. But that's just the fact, and that's the way I see it as someone who has lived here their whole life, traveled all over the world, and has what I consider common sense. Not everyone possesses common sense, unfortunately. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of reactionary beliefs that come without it. So it's just like, it just makes sense to me. It's like, if you want to live your life a certain way, I'm not going to tell you how to do it, because I want to live my life a certain way, and I don't expect you to come to my house and give me trouble for it. And I definitely don't want the government coming to my house to tell me how to live my life or how to do what how to build my garden or whatever. Like, that's wrong too. So it's like, it's back to that consistency thing. It's like, if you want to be consistent, I feel like you have to take a little bit of a deeper dive and, kind of look yourself in the mirror and kind of question how you treat other people, because it's one of those, you can't have your cake and eat it too situations, I feel.
Well, I think there's a real problem, and it's been like kind of a concerning growing trend in not just the gun community, but kind of the general conservative right-wing space, has been after like a big push towards more libertarian ideas for years. like a lot for some reason the pandemic swung a lot of people more towards like fascism as like a genuine ideology, and it's like very larpy, a lot of these people, like the way they talk about it and stuff, because it's the same. They would accuse like, you know, communists and socialists and all that of being like very, oh, you think you're going to be like a party guy and you're going to be like, you know, chairman of the board, like of this committee of you're going to be chairman of the arts or whatever, when really you're going to be mining lithium or uranium or whatever the fuck. And it's like the same, it's the same shit.
Dig the fucking hole.
Yeah, yeah, dig the fucking hole. But it's the same. It's the same shit with all of these, you know, like larpy wannabe fascist kids who have nothing. You know, they feel very insecure about the future. They're worried about the left, quote unquote, you know, stomping their way of life out. And you know, they might have been freedom loving people just a few years ago,
Right.
but now they feel like, oh well, because power exists, I got to be the dude. I got to be the boot. And you know, they think just like these communists and socialists that they're going to be the party chairman. They're going to be chairman of you know, stomping out degeneracy or whatever. And but they're going to get to live their life on their terms.
Right.
And so we can't arm the enemy. We got to make sure these people are disarmed. It's like, dude, you're going to
Who
be
defines that?
yeah, you're gonna be digging the fucking hole, dude. Like
I mean, yeah.
if you want to push for that, you're not gonna be the party guy. You're gonna be some worm that gets crushed under the rails to make sure the trains are running on time.
That's one of those things too, is like, I certainly don't have the answer for what the future holds or what it should look like.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people talking this like post-revolutionary idea of like what new world will look like or whatever. I'm for one not even sure that we're going to see any sort of thing like that in our lifetimes in this country. And if we do, I certainly don't know what that looks like, nor do I claim to have the answer for how it should look. But I do know that on a personal level, like, I'm just going to continue to do what I think is the right thing and treat my neighbors more or less how I want to be treated. I mean, it's very simple, basic, you know,
Human shit.
human ideas that you gain when you're a child from, you know, if your parents offered that kind of guidance or whatever, you know, treat others how you want to be treated. It's
Yeah.
it's so simple. It's almost comical to say it out loud because it just doesn't make sense otherwise to me. So that's why I'm so surprised. I'm not surprised because inherently humans do terrible things, and they have since recorded history and beyond. But it's just like a no-brainer to me. It's like, you know, like, I'm just going to treat people how if they treat me well, then I'm going to treat them well. And unless they have some, you know, I have some hard lines drawn in the sand of what I will and, you know, won't tolerate amongst people. And if you're not approachable, or you're not willing to have an actual conversation about something that I find problematic or disagree with, then I'm not really interested in giving you any of my time. But at the same time, it's just like, we're all just trying to go through life and put food on the table and, you know, take care of our family and our friends and whatever. And getting caught up in the weeds with all these different ideologies is fine, because you can live your life as close to your ideology as you possibly can. And that's great. But otherwise, it's kind of just semantics, because in our lifetime, we're not going to see some revolution that turns into, you know, one way or the other. I mean, that's just, not trying to be grim, that's just the reality of it. So,
Oh yeah.
So I just don't understand why you know, put forth so much time and effort and energy into, you know, infighting.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
my point, I guess. My long-winded point to get to that.
No. I think it's a dumb thing that people get hooked on because we're such a tribal animal. People feel like they need a team to root for, when the team that they should be rooting for is the ability to live their fucking life as they see fit. You know,
simple,
like,
yeah.
but instead of like, because that is actually a fight that requires a lot of effort, a lot of self-responsibility, a lot of looking in the mirror and asking hard questions like, am I consistent in how I live my life? Do I treat people how I want to be treated? And, you know, like, really being honest, am I a decent person to my neighbors? All that kind of thing. Like, so many people would much rather just have this kind of high and lofty idea of like, oh, when the revolution happens, and you know, you get leftist and hard right people, just we've been talking about, who have these ideas, who think like, oh, well, once it happens, then I'll be able to be this perfect version of myself,
Right,
living in this perfect world that abides by the way I, you know, everything will work as I see fit and all will be good. Like, no, dude, you're gonna have neighbors that think very fucking differently than you, more than likely.
I mean, yeah, I mean, unless you're talking about an eradication of a whole population,
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah,
which a lot of people do.
which unfortunately you do hear that floated, especially on some of these like back end channels on the dark places on the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's disheartening to see that you're talking about other people that way. But it definitely gets talked about, and unless you're planning on some sort of eradication like that, it doesn't matter what's on the other side. You're still going to have disagreements, and that's always one of the things. Is like it's a super simple way to think about it. And again, I do not have the answer for what the right answer or what it would look like or how it should look or whatever. I only know how the way I want to conduct my life and how I want to treat other people in my life. But it's like that age old thing of like, well, what happens when, the powers that be or whatever, whether it's a communal group of people making rules up or whatever, say, hey, like, let's wear red on Wednesdays. And somebody says, I don't want to wear red on Wednesdays. Like, what do you do? Like, I mean, that's like the problem with all of that too, is like, it's like someone's going to lead the dance and there's going to be disagreements. So unless you have, like, no one's ever going to fully agree. Like maybe a few people, living together on a homestead or something can more or less agree on how to do things. But otherwise beyond that, like, I don't really have enough faith in humans, unfortunately.
Yeah, like my wild, well, my response to all of that is like so many of these people call the concept of like like treating people with respect and like oh, we'll work out our differences amicably and all that kind of thing. They call that kind of ideology childish, whatever the label might be for
Right.
it, and then they compare it to their super authoritarian utopias where whenever someone doesn't want to wear red on Wednesdays, we line them up against the wall and shoot them. That is the sensible adult answer to the world's problems. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, man, I don't claim to have the answer. I just know that, like, you should just try to go through your life and be a good person to people. And that's about as good as it's going to get in my lifetime. And there's causes to fight for, and there's things that we believe in that, we put forth time and effort in. I mean, I spent years, as we touched on last time, years working at sea for doing different patrols, helping capacity building West African military so they could patrol their own waters, and also in the whole environmental impact of everything and in Antarctica. And it's something I believed in strongly. So I dedicated a lot, almost 10 years of my life doing that kind of work. But I mean, in this day and age, like, I don't have a lot of control over stuff, and I'm not even asking for control over people or things like that. I just have as much control as possible over my own life and how I conduct myself on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that's about as good as it gets. And people should try to hate less and be better people to their neighbors, because we're all just people trying to get by and put food on our tables.
Yeah, that's something I hope so many of these weird divisive things die out in the community, because it's like clearly not sustainable, and there's obviously so many bigger issues
For sure.
and
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is to uniting people, because you're not going to unite everyone. We are tribal, but good God, could we?
But you can try.
Could we realize we don't need to be smacking each other upside the head every 15 minutes and having an issue, like, unless someone is like genuinely negligent,
Right?
And like, because there is, and obviously we do that on this show. We talk shit about real people by name sometimes, because
there's people who deserve that for sure.
Fuck Tim Kennedy.
Yes, once again, fuck Tim Kennedy. But
Dakota Meyer can eat my entire asshole.
But
that's a throwback. That's a real throwback. That's like episode 2 or something.
An on-war classic. But
yes, but I still think he's a dipshit. So I'm not even doing a bit. I just hate that guy. I don't hate very often.
No, but like when there are people who are like not really out here for pushing forward people, they're more about pushing forward a product or like things of that nature or whatever. Like fuck that stuff. But I don't know.
Hey, we always tell people, and we've had a lot of great conversations from people all over the map on Guerrilla Tactical. Like, for the most part, I run the page. We have other people, involved in the company now. But for the most part, it's me on the page. And like, I'm always down to talk about things with people. And like, I'm very approachable. And we get people hitting us up all the time about various questions and within the space. And a lot of times it's related to a product that we do or gear or training or whatever. And we're happy to answer it because we're also a company that is there for the people. And that's, it's not just about making the product and making the money. It's like we started it because it's something that we believe in, arming responsible people to be able to be better prepared and take care of themselves, their families, and their communities. So that's one reason why we're there and we exist, and it extends past just gear talk and things like that. If someone needs something or has just a question in general, politics, philosophy, whatever, like don't claim to be any expert in anything, but I am pretty well read and have done a lot of traveling and have some interesting perspectives, I think, that I've been able to bring to this community that is not always the main perspective that you see in this space. So we try.
Yeah, that is the future of this community, I think, is a lot more companies that, because I think for the longest time we've grown very fat off the back of kind of the leftovers of the military industrial complex. It's been a lot of people from that space, a lot more like kind of big military kind of things first, and then, oh yeah, civilians can also use this. And now we're getting more to a point where it's like, actually, this is something that should be more civilian focused. This is something that it's more than just a product. Like, a community does need to be built around this to keep on pushing these ideas and to educate. That's been a really big part of this iteration of gun culture is
Sure.
Education, preparedness, kind of building that community and keeping, just keep it going forward, keep on educating someone else, making sure they can look after themselves and so on. But with Guerrilla Tactical, is there anything that you haven't covered yet that you're looking to cover in terms of like education or like even just culture? Like, is there anything that you guys would like to push into more?
Well, when we started the company, training was something that we wanted to work on more. But to be
that'd be cool.
But to be honest,
It'd be very hard to do it in Washington.
well, I was going to say, to be honest with you, the training market is somewhat saturated. There's a lot of really good outfits even in our immediate area. Core Vision is probably my favorite in the whole area, and we know those guys, and they actually put on some really good courses, CQB and all sorts of different stuff as well, long range, land nav, and their mission is very similar. They are wanting to predominantly work with civilians to get people more prepared and have a more preparedness mindset. So we kind of just send people who ask about training to different people. Grizzly Medical is another person if worth checking out. He is one of the best medical trainers I've ever done a class with or worked with. And he really puts on a great class, and people walk away knowing how to save a life, whether it be their own or someone else, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind that if you take a 2-day class that he'll put on, you'll walk away with the knowledge and ability to save lives. So we kind of work with some training outfits and kind of do some cross promotional stuff to get people involved. As far as us doing training, we're just so busy with the growth of the company right now and all the different avenues that we're working on with products and just general growth and scaling, that we've kind of put the idea of doing training on the back burner for now, with the exception of some of these trips or whatever that we've taken and went to Ukraine to help out, and we might go again. We're actually working on some fundraising ideas that we might convert all the dollars from the fundraising directly into medical supplies and be able to take over even more, because, and I know a lot of people complain about the Ukrainian situation, how much money is getting funneled to it and how much supplies and stuff, but like we touched on earlier today, it's still a bunch of grassroots efforts amongst many of the units that are literally going to battle with Chinese tourniquets that snap in 2 seconds trying to save their friends. So we're still working on some initiatives like that to try to get stuff together. And yeah, I mean, we're just going to keep rolling and trying to be innovative. I think that's the biggest thing. trying to be approachable, trying to be a positive space in this greater gun community, in the culture, and just continue to be innovative. We have some cool ideas for products that have never been done before that we're slowly working on this year. Hopefully they come to fruition, maybe in like Q2 or Q3 of this year. And if they do, I think that they have the possibility to get laughed at for 6 months, and then everyone will be copying them. So it's we'll see. We'll see. And I think it's we have a new warehouse being built right now. Slow with the weather. It's been really snowy and cold here, so the building's going up very slowly. But hopefully by like May this year, we'll be all moved into that new space, and that's going to open up.
That's awesome. Are you renting or do you buy it?
No, we're building a space. Yeah, we have 9 acres here.
That's awesome.
And we're building on the 9 acres.
Hell yeah.
That's going to be huge.
Yeah. So we're going to have, it's going to open up so many new avenues. And one of the things too that we're going to start doing this year is, well, 2 things that we're excited about. They're unannounced, but I'll say it on the podcast because it doesn't matter. It's not a really big secret. It's just something to look forward to. We're going to be doing quick ship holsters soon that we're currently not doing. We still have short lead times. We still have a lead time. Quick ship holsters will ship 1 to 3 days, because our whole thing is that what good is it that you wait 6 weeks for your holster? Like, you have a gun that you need to carry, and what if you needed to use that gun or have that gun on you during that 6 weeks that you're waiting for this piece of plastic to show up at your door? You know what I mean? It sucks. And I hate waiting for stuff. So we want to make it a quick ship option so that people can get their holsters shipped in 1 to 3 business days. And we're also going to include options that aren't really available right now on quick ship options. You're going to be able to choose from all the camos and all those things that usually you can just buy, like a generic black holster quick ship from a lot of companies. But we're going to offer camos and more sought after things, because why not? You should be able to get your custom holster fast. We're not Amazon, but you should have it in your hand as soon as possible. And then we're going to start, we just recently started carrying armor because it kind of goes along with our whole mindset of preparedness and being able to supply people with the tools that we think they need. So we became a dealer for West Coast Armor. They are also work with Core Vision a lot on stuff. We have some cool videos coming out to show the strength of the plates that we're going to be shooting later this month up at Core Vision with those guys. And I think they're a really excellent plate, and they're a newer company. So some people are iffy, it's kind of like the snake staff tourniquet thing. But they're going through their certifications, and I've seen the data, and I run them personally. And like, I wouldn't use a plate that I didn't think would save my life. So they're pretty cool. And then we're going to start carrying optics and lights and all that stuff for
that'll be good,
because we have everything else. We have the holster, and people need accessories, and people have been asking for it. So we're going to, either end of this quarter or early next quarter, we're going to start offering a lot more retail SKUs. So we're really excited for that.
Yeah. No,
will you be carrying the best company? Will you be carrying Olight?
I didn't say that we're going to get an SOT, but we're not going to get the one for explosives. So
good answer. Hey man, that's civilian legal.
So no. Currently, we only support the Valkyrie 2 on like 3 models, and people ask me all the time about Olight because it is a cheap option. But Streamlight nowadays
it's weirdly popular for how much it gets memed, I
guess.
Yeah,
it's and I kind of chalk that up to their marketing is really good. They reached out to us. They reach out to almost any company that has 10,000 followers or more, and they'll be like, "Hey, we see you're posting gun pictures. Can we send you some lights and you can like use them and then do?" And a lot of people take the bait, and it's not that they, there's memes about how they explode and all that, and it has happened. I don't know one personally who's used one and had an issue with it. They're not horrible, but they're compared to like a Streamlight that is only.
I know a couple people have been burned. No one where they've exploded.
Yeah,
but like I view it the same way I'd view like a light. Most people who buy them, they're going to work, but the problem is if you have shoddy QC on like something that has to work.
Yep, absolutely.
And like we all know that like chances are it's not going to explode. But it might fail, and it is statistically a lot higher.
Oh yeah,
of a chance.
We tell people all the time, say go buy a Streamlight. Like you have a Glock 19, buy a Streamlight TLR7A. It's like $25 more than the Olight, and it's proven to work as long as your battery is charged in it. It's going to work 100% of the time. Like, and people usually are like, "Oh, that makes sense." So no, we
Yeah.
won't be selling Olight to answer your question.
Yes. I was very much joking.
Of course, I know you were.
And then it's like, God damn it.
Amazing.
But,
Well, we're
Yes,
just
no,
thinking
I
about Olight.
really wanted an Olight. I've been waiting for that. Weirdly, they never reached out to us. I feel like maybe we clowned on them too hard.
I mean, there's no way. Well, I don't know. Maybe their marketing guy like listened to a few episodes, but
He's like, oh no, these guys they because 100% I would accept it and then proceed to, I don't know, meme them really hard.
There are at least 20 episodes of ours. I don't even have to go back and count them. I can say this authoritatively. There are at least 20 episodes of Olight jokes. So
I mean,
Yes.
it's an easy joke to
a
make.
few cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of punching down at this point.
Well,
Which I find funny because they did win. You're seeing like kind of semi-serious dudes and LEO starting to use them, which I find actually awful.
I'm fine
But, I
with
mean,
that.
I'm absolutely fine with
But
Yeah, I mean,
where am I gonna go from that?
yeah.
Olights. What a product.
No,
What a product! Wonderful.
when you're a company that's like, you know, a lot of newer gun owners are coming to you to equip themselves, it's real good to have, like, you know, you can set them up from go with good stuff. It's a shame that so many companies will carry those kind of poor quality control lights and kind of be like, well, there is a cheaper option, rather than treat it as a serious service that it is of equipping
Yeah.
someone with life-saving equipment.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, if this gives you any idea about the motives behind our company, we were approached, and I'm not, you know, trying to pat myself on the back or anything like this, but we are proud of this decision that we did not make. Last year, with all the stuff happening in Ukraine, we got approached by a company that wanted to do about a $1.5 million medical deal with Ukraine. So we said, yeah, sure, like we can look into that. And we got all the product SKUs for them, laid it all out, gave them a PO. We said, yeah, we can do this. And they came back and they said, hey, your tourniquet price is too expensive, which we were charging a lot less than a lot of people would charge for a cat tourniquet. You know, we were, of course, giving them a discount because it was a bulk buy for a cause that we believed in. And they said, your tourniquet price is way too high. And I said, hey, like, here's how much tourniquets cost. Here's how much they retail for. As you can see, we're really only making a few bucks per tourniquet for the trouble. And they said, if you can replace everything with Chinese cats, then we'll do the deal. And I said,
like that.
I'm sorry, but we cannot proceed with this deal. We will not be replacing cat tourniquets with Chinese cats, because I personally know the horror stories of what happens with them, and I would not be able to sleep at night. None of my, no one at Guerrilla Tactical would be able to sleep at night knowing that we sold out to these kids like we had gone to train, going to the front line with Chinese cats and using them on their friends, the windlass breaking, and then them bleeding out on the battlefield just because they wanted to save $25,000 or whatever.
Yeah, like going from like, oh yeah, we're doing this for a good cause, to like, well, it's actually more of a posture than the good cause thing.
So
we just want to look good, not actually save lives.
We told them get lost, and they went somewhere else who would supply them with Chinese cats, and that sucks.
There's a lot, unfortunately. I remember I keep on seeing rats tourniquets pop up. Still,
that is
still.
Like Yellow Peril Tactical just posted something about the whole tampon for plugging gunshot wounds thing, like, you know, a meme about it. And I'm like, yeah, these things, just to be clear, Yellow Peril, they understand medical shit.
They understand that you should not use a tampon.
yeah. It's like, yeah, use a tampon if you're menstruating, not if you're bleeding out from a fucking gunshot wound. And there's like we're still talking about these things, and it's a shame, because it just goes to show, like, you know, while there is an element of the gun culture that is like very switched on, kind of knows like, all right, I shouldn't have, you know, steel body armor, I should use like proper cat's tourniquets, I shouldn't use tampons, all the rest of that kind of thing. There are still pervasive elements who, you know, either they're ignorant or they're kind of maliciously like giving out poor information to make sales, and it's like, fuck, like it's pretty hard to scrub that out. And the best tool of this community has been, and I hate to say it, it's been cyberbullying. Whenever you see like, I hate to say it, but whenever you see like, whenever you see someone like, and again, I only advocate it because it's such a fucking serious topic when you're talking about saving someone's life or
Yeah.
life preserving gear, whatever it might be. We need to be really fucking harsh about the standards for this stuff because it's not just something that's for the aesthetics or for like, to say, oh, we donated $1.5 million of medical gear to Ukraine. Like, that's fucking great. But was it
was
What were
it
their,
life
what were their
saving
motives?
gear?
actually
And I assure you, their motives were to make money. Off the
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
Who knows what they were trying to flip that for? That was just our price for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when it comes to cyberbullying, like you're right. Like, I mean, there are people who need to be called out for things. And if you say or represent some dumb stuff online, especially where everyone sees it, you can say whatever you want and do whatever you want, but you should expect some backlash for it.
Yeah.
For like this
Yeah.
dumb idea that you put out there for the world to see. And it's like don't harass the 14-year-old girl so she kills herself. Bad.
Yeah.
Talking about tampons, good.
Yes. Use cyberbullying for good.
That's
people.
cyberbullying and how it should be used. Yeah. I mean, I will
You can literally save a life.
Yeah, exactly.
if-
I will not say the name of the training outfit because truthfully, I think that they do very good work over in Ukraine. But I was kind of bummed to find out when we had been there had been some of this other training group in the area a few weeks before, and they had told people carry tampons in your IFACs in case you
God
need them.
fucking damn it.
And I really
that's Fud lore that needs to die.
and I really chalked that up to like these SEALs and stuff who got out in like 2001 before cats really took off, before combat gauze was tested and how it is today. And that's not an excuse to spread terrible misinformation that's like super archaic, outdated, and wrong. But like I do chalk it up to that. I don't think any modern day person involved in training who isn't some old fuddy, dude who was ex-military in 2000 or whatever will tell you to use a cat. Or to use a tampon. I keep saying that. Don't
you use it.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
But no, that's a phenomenon I've definitely run into a lot out here. Like if I end up in a situation where like I'm shooting with some older dudes and they're trying to like impress the young guy with some stories, like, oh yeah, my buddy, he was a ranger in Vietnam, and he'll start telling me some stuff. I'm like, I'm sure this dude is like a real killer, but like he'll tell me some kind of like technique stuff, and it'll be something just like using tampons for like gunshot wounds or something. You're like fucking hell, dude. Like, all right, man.
You had this dirt in the jungle, and you spit on it and just rubbed it in the wound. And it did okay, cool, dude. But
cool war story. I'm sure it sounds good at the bar.
In 2023, where we can have access to combat gauze and cat tourniquets.
Yeah. Technology has thankfully moved on a touch since the Vietnam conflict, but
yeah, I assume by nature any training that you get from the government or most government entities is 10 to 20 years old, like generally out of
so this when I first got over here, and some people might know me from ages back doing my little illustrated guides from way back when, but when I was doing that, from what I saw, not a lot of people were doing guides on Instagram, and so I threw together
that's something that took up.
And nowadays I have imposter syndrome because there's so much good information. I'm like, I don't even want to fuck with this because of this very situation. But I put out like just a very basic combat first aid guide, and I realized because it was British Army training that I'd gotten. And I realized it was like fucking minimum 10, 15 years out of date. Like it was not great stuff. And a lot of people were correcting me in the comments, and I'm like, even like tourniquet placement and things like that. I was like, oh wow, okay, what the fuck? They're teaching people this today at Sandhurst. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
And civilians and EMTs and American military are like,
like, what are you talking about?
Dude?
I mean,
yeah. It's scary. Like there is a lot. I'm sure Canada's the same way. They've still got you guys using like tin pot helmets and shit. But
oh my god, yeah, no, you should see the body
vests.
armor is genuinely like
flak vest,
non-era flak vests.
Yeah. They're like, all right, well, if you get shot in the arm, you take out your trusty combat saw and you just
cut it off.
and then you cauterize it.
Yep.
And
Yeah, no, we didn't get any tourniquet training at all.
oh, really?
Yep.
Wow.
It's not standard kit. Maybe that's changed as of recently, but
Yeah.
Man, I hope so. It's
I mean, fingers crossed for the Canucks, but I wouldn't put my money on it.
wow, that's wild. Yeah, I mean, I've done medical training all over the world in different, across 3 different continents, and every single one's a little bit different. You know what I mean? There's the general similar themes going on, but it's, depending on who you're working with. So it's like it's not surprising to hear that, stuff's 10 years out of date over in England or whatever. And, but yeah, it's scary. Medical stuff is scary because it's like you have the ability to take it in, and if it's the right information and you ever are faced with it and you can stay calm enough to use it, then like you can do a lot of good with it. But not when it's some guy who's, ex-military of 25 years ago, and he's telling you to like just take little tampon, the extra big tampons and stick them in, you know what I mean? And you're just like, come on, dude. Someone's going to try that, and then their friend's going to bleed out, and they're going to go, I don't understand why that didn't work. You're going to live with that guilt of like, I didn't save my friend, and it's just like, geez.
Yeah, and so preventable. Yeah, like
Yeah.
That's a phenomenon that we kind of face in this gun community, where you have guys who got out in like 2007 or whatever, still teaching classes and stuff. It's like you need to keep on learning, man.
Say that is one thing that I really appreciate with Core Vision is that all of those guys who do the training there are constantly re-upping, and some are still in active positions. So they're able to constantly be teaching, to civilians the most up-to-date procedures on things. So, and it's like, the reality is, whatever way you feel about it, if you want to get the best training possible, then you're going to get the best training possible by getting training from really good killers. And I mean, that's the reality. Like the people who have had the most combat experience like that are going to be able to shed light on things that no other civilian trainer would be able to show you. So it's like, it's one of those things. Yeah.
the world we live in, people.
It's true. Yeah. I tell people, try to get the, use the best gear you can afford and get the best training that you can get, because it's only your life or the life of someone around you that is at stake. So, and not to put in some sort of like message of like hysteria. It's just the reality is like, you just never know what to expect. A buddy of mine was down in Dallas, Texas, visiting his family, and he was driving home, and he saw a motorcycle accident where someone got a drive-by shooting, killed. He was the first on the scene to put a tourniquet on the guy. And then 3-4 hours later, he was driving and saw a terrible car accident where like an old couple fell asleep at the wheel. And it's just like, he was able to utilize his medical training in both of those instances. And that happened in the span of 5 hours in the same day. So it's like,
fucking hell.
People think about, gunshots, knife wounds, street conflict, things like that, these problems arise from. But the reality is most people are like you said earlier, Nathan, you fall off your mountain bike and, fall on a tree limb and it impales you. It's like, do you know how to stabilize that? Do you know how to, do you know how to handle that? DIY stabilize that until you get to a hospital. And like, do you know how to, it's like that stuff is more realistic for most people. And to go above that and beyond that, it's, as we talked about before, it's way more probable that you're going to use medical supplies in some capacity than to draw your gun and use it. Thankfully.
Like car accidents are among the leading causes of death.
Absolutely.
It's
Yep.
Fun fact.
And that's yep, absolutely. So medical supplies, make it sexy again. That's what this year's all about, making medical supplies sexy.
Hell yeah. We're gonna do our best. We are gonna like now that we've said it on the show. Now we're gonna have like the 5% of our listenership who just go and bug people when we jokingly talk about them. They're gonna be in Weapon Outfitters comments now, like, do a medical shoot, make medical gear sexy.
When are you gonna make?
And he's already replied. He
Guerrilla Tactical said make medical sexy. I don't know what it means, but I like it.
What do you say?
He says that actually, yes, it could be educational, and I haven't followed up since.
He's like, yes, Nathan.
Yes, probably just humoring me, but
it is true that this space is predominantly guys, and you put a little something out there for them, they're going to be like,
yep,
I should carry a tourniquet.
Yes, I love it,
man. Yeah.
we got anything to wrap on? We're getting to about that time, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's getting there. Oh, an hour. It's in an hour and 40 minutes. Yeah, it's going by.
If you see a balloon with Chinese writing on it floating over your house, shoot it down.
Dude, I don't know. I don't know. I was reading some very conflicting reports that said that debris might hurt people.
When it was going over Montana, I was like, I mean, maybe a cow or two.
I saw a funny, like, people were trolling in the comments, and someone was like, "Oh, China sends a balloon over the United States to spy on the United States, so they send it to Montana where there's no people. Good move."
Well, that's been such a weird news story to blow up. I mean, for one, like, I'm sure you guys have seen the map that shows it's like, man, it's so fucked up that China's spying on us. It shows like all of the U.S. assets off the coast of China, which of course. But but on top of that, like, I've also seen the flight path of it, and it's like it's going like from Montana and like northern, and then swooping down like all the way across like Tennessee and
I heard on not good authority that Canada scrambled fighters while it was in our airspace.
Really? I thought to escort it or
to actually shoot it down. I heard that from someone who I trust, who's actually in a position of operations command.
Okay, well, cool. That's gonna get us.
And by the time that the F-18s got there, it was gone, and they couldn't find it.
F-18s couldn't keep up with a balloon, just kind of like
this balloon that's the size of like
what's going on in America.
They got real close, they had to pull away because it was the dude from Up. It's a house with balloons attached to it. Abort.
Yeah, it happened again. So let's call it off.
I just imagine like Xi Jinping is just sitting in a chair, just like.
God. Yeah, what a bizarre story.
Yeah, apparently there is now a second balloon, so we'll see where that goes. You know, there's a possibility.
A second balloon has hit the tower, Mr. President.
I mean, I will be the first to say I haven't been on top of the story, but I heard multiple conflicting reports. One that there was another one in the Canadian airspace, but you are saying that that's this one that popped over the border.
Apparently, it crossed the border into Canadian airspace again.
And then, and then I read that China claimed that it was a civilian balloon, which is whatever. And then I heard another report that said this kind of thing has been happening for years. It's just the first time that it's been caught on the news, which I think is fine, but also strange that no one with a cell phone's ever seen this before. But hey, I guess they go high up. Who knows?
I was gonna say, like, I'm pretty sure, like, even people we follow, like, I don't know if this was their video or not, but I'm pretty sure Midwest Gunworks posted a video. They're like, was that
right
their video?
Right outside their place. Yeah, that was his video.
Like, fucking float, like, you could see it with the naked eye, and he said something about shooting it down with 6.5 Creedmoor, which I'm into.
I don't believe in any of that stuff. I'm along for the ride.
Admittedly, it's in basically like almost low atmosphere orbit at that point,
right?
But still,
no, like I mean, a lot of people have been saying, like, what's it gonna see that Google Maps wouldn't, unless it has like extra equipment? And again,
admittedly, you can fit a lot on there, and also we have no idea. Like who knows what their tech is capable of? Could be like deep ground penetrating radar. Could be like chock full of EMP devices. Who knows? Could just be a fucking weather balloon, and we've been being clowned the entire time. Right. But
many such cases.
But like China's not stupid. There are a lot of things, but they're not stupid. There's an end game to this.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, do I care? Not particularly. I'm more concerned about my $15 carton of eggs at this point. If aliens show up tomorrow, it's
no surprise.
Whatever.
You've seen it all in the last 2 years.
You'll open the door and be like, "How much do eggs cost where you're from?"
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we want to begin now if you're gents.
Yeah, I mean, I think the balloon conspiracy is a good note to end on.
It's just fucking funny and odd.
It's just weird to me. I'm like, whatever. I don't know what's going on, but okay.
Yeah, is that February's thing? Because like, if it is, I mean, that's cool. We can deal with like an enemy air asset balloon.
Yeah.
Like, sure, what the fuck ever, as long as it doesn't like release a fucking virus bomb on us.
It's just fucking Bill Gates up there.
Yo,
It's Bill Gates this entire time.
speaking of balloons, have you ever listened to that Radio Lab, I think, podcast on like the secret project of Japan during World War II? They were sending like essentially incendiary balloons over, and they would come in and then drop down in random places on the West Coast as like a
Yeah, they released thousands of them.
yeah.
Didn't they?
No, I mean it's like
They didn't really do much.
no, they didn't do much. I'm just saying, it's on the topic of balloons. It's an interesting podcast about it. If you haven't listened to it, it's an interesting
I'm
piece
gonna
of
have to
history.
listen. Yeah.
If that ever happened again, we'd be totally screwed here on the West Coast because of forest fires. The way we,
Yeah, no, genuinely. How do I defeat the United States?
Yeah.
I'll just set it on fire. Like,
Yeah.
man, it's yeah, no, but this balloon thing, it's very strange. We'll see what happens with it.
Yeah.
There we go. We got topical. Now the news people will be happy.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Very-
The
Right.
like 8 people that come to the Art and War podcast for
the news.
yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
God help
I
them.
waited through an hour and 45 minutes to get the news. Good.
Yeah, now I know what's going on. Okay,
Perfect.
cool. I'll be back next week, guys.
Yes. And chances are, like a couple of hours from now, all the balloons are going to detonate, and we'll be reading this from the wasteland
Oh,
as like PLA soldiers land in their fucking hovercrafts or whatever along all the coastlines.
My favorite thing was like the real Warhawk types were like, there is an enemy air asset over our space. Launch the B-52s. It's like, dude,
hold on.
whoa.
calm down.
They're like,
yeah.
oh, a balloon? Let's end civilization. Like,
Calm down.
hell,
Calm down.
man. Like,
Yeah, it is no secret China's been doing this for a long time. Maybe not necessarily balloons, but like they have been probing both American and Canadian airspace for a while, and it never hits the news.
I mean,
Never.
you can't think a country like China isn't, doesn't have assets like that all over the world monitoring different things,
Oh,
just like
100%.
the United States has monitoring
No.
systems all over the world. So it's like,
Yeah.
just how it is.
Yeah.
But
just a little bit of international banter.
that's right. Part of everyday life. But
Hell yeah.
no, it's always fun chatting with you guys.
Yes,
Appreciate
it's
having
been a
you back
pleasure.
for round 2.
Absolutely. We still need to get your lady back on, or get your lady on to talk about National Geographic adventures.
Yeah, she was just talking about that the other day. I think she would very much enjoy doing that. It'd be a little change of pace for the podcast, and I think that people would find it interesting.
Yeah, get to
That
talk
could be
some
fun.
photography, which
I would like
oddly
that.
we've never done.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think we've ever talked photography apart from with Weapon Outfitters.
I'm kind of
basically.
I'm like an idiot with an iPhone when it comes to photography. I can have a vision, but I can't always execute it. That's why I'm very fortunate to have my wife, who is a professional, who works for the company.
Oh, what is her? She has an Instagram page now, right? Where she kind of showcases a little bit extra.
Oh yeah. It's Snakehead Concepts. That
Nice.
is her new media company in a sense. I mean, she's mostly doing the media for Guerrilla Tactical still, of course, but she is branching out and doing some other stuff for some other people. So if you want to see a cool page, and shameless plug for my wife, if you want to see some cool content, she is an excellent media person. Snakehead Concepts, all one thing on Instagram, and it's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go, we do have to hit you with the dad advice.
Oh, I knew this one was
Yes.
coming. I'm trying to think what I said last time, so I don't say the same thing again. I'm just gonna say some cheesy line.
Hey, go for it, man.
That
Do
is, and we kind of touched on it already, but the reality is every single person has the power in them to provoke some sort of change around them, whether it be in their own life, within their family, within their community, or in some cases on a national or global scale. So look yourself in the mirror in the morning and ask yourself, are you happy with the person that you are? And how can you be a better person? And then seize the day.
I like that.
Yeah, that's it. That's a wrap.
Do good things, make the world better.
That's right.
Yes.
Be a good person. So
Be a good
I
person.
appreciate it, guys.
No
Yeah,
worries.
good talking to you,
Thanks
man.
again for
All
coming
right, no
on.
worries, man.
All right, and okay, bye.
Okay, bye.